اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم ترحم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما ترحمت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم تحنن على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما تحننت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم يا ربي وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما سلمت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. Dear respected sisters and brothers, once more, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace of Allah be with you and His blessings and His mercy. I had in mind, when thinking about what I was going to say in these few times in this retreat, the meeting between land and sea, and I had thought of it in three parts: discovery, meeting, and reflection. And today then is meeting. And I want to start really with a poem by Rumi. Unfortunately, I have not got it in the original Persian, which would have been very nice. Never mind. Here it comes in, I think it is Nicholson's, yes, in Nicholson's fantastic translation. This poem is called God in Nature. The world is frozen. Its name is Jamad, inanimate. Jamid means frozen, O Master. Wait till the rising of the sun of resurrection, that thou mayst see the movement of the world's body. Since God hath made man from dust, it behoves thee to recognize the real nature of every particle of the universe. That while from this aspect they are dead, from that aspect they are living, silent here but speaking yonder. When He sends them down to our world, the rod of Moses becomes a dragon in regard to us. The mountains sing with David, iron becomes as wax in his hand. The wind becomes a carrier for Solomon. The sea understands what God said to Moses concerning it. The moon obeys the sign given by Muhammad. The fire of Nimrod becomes a garden of roses for Abraham. They all cry, we are hearing and seeing and responsive, though to you, the uninitiated, we are mute. I repeat that last verse. They all cry, we are hearing and seeing and responsive, though to you, the uninitiated, we are mute. Ascend from materiality into the world of spirits. Hearken to the loud voice of the universe. then thou wilt know that God is glorified by all inanimate things. The doubts raised by false interpreters will not beguile thee. So what Maulana is saying here, the student is saying to his master that this world around us is all inanimate. It's all things without spirit. But the master replies, it might look like this to you today, but in reality, it is all living. You will see this reality on the day of resurrection. To us, all these things appear as dead, but in reality, they are alive. Sometimes this comes to light, as for example, the rod, the walking stick of Musa alayhi salam becomes a dragon, a big snake. Or when Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam is singing and praising Allah, not only the animals and the birds sing with him, but also the mountains. Or how metal and iron becomes as wax and soft in his hand. When the wind carries Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam in his throne, غُدُوُّهَا شَهْرٌ وَرَوَاحُهَا شَهْرٌ, that in one morning or one afternoon it carries him the distance of 1 month travel. Or when the sea, the Red Sea, understands the command that Allah has given to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam to hit your walking stick, your rod, on the water, it will open up as 12 paths, and the sea willingly obeys. Or when at the sign of the fingers of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the moon splits in two. Or when the fire responds to the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Kuni bardan wa salaman ala Ibrahim, to be coolness and tranquility for Abraham alayhi salatu wasalam. So they are all hearing and seeing and responsive. It is to us they appear as mute, as dead, as inanimate things. But when we ascend from this materialism, from this looking at the world around us as it, they will come alive, and we will realize that they are alive just as we are. We will see then that everything in this world really is praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. Everything in the world is singing the praises and the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We may see it, we may not, we may feel it, we may not, but nevertheless they are. And don't let the doubts raised by false interpreters beguile thee. Do not become fooled by those materialists who tell you otherwise, who say that a stone cannot say Subhanallah because it is dead. The only way the stone can say Subhanallah is by you holding it in your hand and you seeing the stone and realizing through the stone the greatness of the creator of the stone. You say Subhanallah. So in effect, the stone said Subhanallah. I'm not denying this fact at all, whatsoever. It has happened in front of me. The very person who introduced me to Islam at one point, he just took up a stone and he said, this, only this on its own is enough proof of the existence of Allah. So that happens, of course that happens. But that does not mean that they do not praise Allah themselves. Not only through us, but through themselves as well. The whole world sings the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we will only see that, we will only feel that when we look at the world not as it, but as you. I mentioned yesterday a few things, a few books that I had read that had made deep impression or impressions on me lately. I have 3 of them here. They are all by what somebody may call non-Muslim authors. I don't like the term non-Muslim. It's a horrible negation, really. Persons who do not identify themselves as Muslims, put it that way. I don't know if they are. In one way, they are much more Muslims than some of us, I'm sure. One is by a priest, a fantastic book on spirituality. It's in Swedish. I will leave it here today. You can look at it if somebody is interested. I don't know how easy it is to get hold of. I was given the copy by the person himself. We held a joint lecture. Fantastic book about spirituality. It really makes you think. Another is a book about hospitality. To be a host. Also a book that really kind of rocked me. Written by 2 very, very normal Swedish men. I don't think they consider themselves to be particularly religious. Really fantastic. There's a fantastic story here about an Iranian bus driver in the beginning. Again, I do not know how well it will do in translation. I will not go through the whole story. It will take all of my time here. But if you read it, you will understand for yourselves. That's just after the introduction, but basically the first chapter. And the latest in my life discovery, the Jewish philosopher Martin Buber, who wrote this book called Man to Man in English. I don't know the German title. He wrote in German originally. In 1953 and in 1923, 30 years earlier, he had written a book which in English is called I and Thou. Jag och du. And maybe it's from that title really more than the actual book itself. I take the key to this little presentation here. And that is, you can look at the world around you. Not only the world around you, really there are 4 things. It is your relation to yourself, the way you look upon yourself, the way you relate to yourself. It is your relation to people around you, and it is your relation to the world around you, and then of course your relation to Allah, your relation to the Creator, to the essential you, as it were. So you can think of all of these things really. Let's take a person that you meet. You meet a person. As human beings, we are given this ability, this unique ability that I was talking about yesterday, to analyze what we see and to draw conclusions. We constantly, as we look around us, as our senses gives us information of the world around us, we constantly analyze this information. It's completely automatic. You don't really have to think to do it. And it gives us an impression of the world around us and an understanding of the things that we see and experience. And this is very much based on our previous experiences and the knowledge we have gathered up till date. And this is a necessary function for the human being. We cannot avoid it, but it is also very important that we balance it with something else, because if we only dwell in that aspect of relating to what is around us, we will look at everything with an analytical eye. Everything is it. We analyze it, we can describe it, we can understand it, we can use our prejudice very much, our preconceptions. We need them, we would not be able to live without them. If we would not have preconceptions, we would not know when we are hungry if we should eat or drink. When it is cold, do I wear more clothes or less clothes? It's all these preconceptions that we have, these prejudices really that we have that will guide us through life. But if they control us completely, and there is nothing else than that, then all our relation with the world around us, including people around us, will be a relation between I and it. We look at everything in what we call the third person. And that means that it inhibits a direct, intuitive relationship which is beyond place and time. This will become maybe more clear when you look at another person, when you relate to another person. If I think of this person as where he is, what he looks like, what I know of him from previous meetings, or I've heard about him, I have my preconceptions. I have decided who that person is, or rather what that person is. And as long as I am caught in that box, I will not be able to really relate to that person. I will not be able to have a genuine dialogue with that person, because all these preconceptions will be in the way. They will disturb this interaction. But when I let go of all these preconceived ideas, all the previous knowledge that I have of that person, all my understanding of what that person represents, maybe, for example, it is a person who has a particular idea, or he or she, of course, prescribes to a particular philosophy or idea. So I think of that all the time. We might have different ideas. I want maybe have something that I believe, something that I think, something that I feel very strongly about, and I would very much like that person to see matters in the same way as I do. So this idea I have of the person holding one idea and I wanting him to change to my way of thinking, it will destroy any possibility for a genuine dialogue between us. But when all those things somehow move aside or become out of focus, and suddenly I realize the person, the thing I have in front of me, it's a live human being. It's an identity. It's a person. And that person, that it becomes you. Now I can start to relate with this person. It happens sometimes briefly. It could be just you catch somebody's eyes on the bus or the tram, and you just know that something happened. You don't know what happened, something happened. Or it can be a long dialogue that you have with the person lasting for several hours. Usually you would know when it happens. And that is relating to everything around you as you rather than it. This is important when it comes to understanding human relationships, when it comes to being able to have a fruitful interaction with other people, when you want to be able to both yourself get more out of meetings with other people, and also maybe if you, for example, if your professional role, you have to deal with other people, to know these things. You can study these things, it is an academic line of study. But on another level, in the spiritual progress of man, it is also very important, if you take this now from the man-to-man relationship, which is very important. We all live in a society among other human beings. You can have this with nature. You can look upon the nature and you can see, I see trees, I see the sea, I see, kind of get an idea what weather it is, I see the clouds on the sky, I can see colors if I am able to see colors. I get information of the world around me, I can feel whether it's hot or cold, I can continuously analyze everything, I may be able to name every single herb and every single tree that I encounter. Maybe some people know all the mushrooms. But that then is relating to the world around us as it. We analyze it. But sometimes, I think most of you will have experienced this, suddenly you're just struck by the world around you. That it kind of, everything fades away. And this analyzing stops. It is as if you move out of time, you move out of space. Somehow you become completely absorbed by what you experience or what you feel from this world. It can be the whole of the scenery or just the feeling when you're outside or maybe a tree. Martin Buber actually very interestingly here describes the meeting with a tree. So suddenly when he meets this tree, the tree becomes you. To have a dialogue or this kind of relation or interaction with a tree is quite fantastic really when a Western European philosopher describes it in a context where people normally would not even dare to mention such a thought as having any kind of interaction with nature. And of course, most importantly, and that is really what kept going on in my mind when I read this book and it was part of a seminar that I attended, it is when we apply this in our relationship to Allah, our relationship to God. Because I certainly feel that very often we live our relationship with Allah, with God, with the eternal Thou, as it is sometimes being described. I think in Martin Buber's literature, he's still very wary of using the term God because he knows the society around him and the expectations and the automatic prejudice that will fall upon somebody who uses the term God too much in what is supposed to be scientific discourse. So our relationship with God is very often an I-it relationship. We talk about God as a He, in the third person. He is great, He can do what He wills, He has created the heavens and the earth, and God wants this and God wants that, and God will do this and God will do that. And of course that is well and good, it is part of our beliefs, it is part of our theology, everything that we have learned, of course it has been in this third person. If you study any book on the theology of Islam, some people call it ilm al-kalam, some people call it ilm al-aqaid, whatever, it is always talking about God in the third person. Naturally, that's how we do when we are talking about something and trying to describe or understand something. The thing is, though, that in reality, we can describe nature. We will lose a lot of the reality of nature by trying to describe it, by trying to define it in this way, trying to minimize it down to a combination of atoms, I suppose, in the furthest that we normally go in science, and relationship between the atoms and different substances and how they are connected and all this enormously complicated and intricate and fantastic system that the world is around us. And we can also look at people in this way and analyze them, and then it is even more obvious to us that it's not the whole picture. I want to try to describe a person as a chemical reality, or as a biological reality, or even as a social reality. There are lots of aspects of that person that I will miss. So even more than relating to nature around us, when we relate to other people, it becomes clear that this analytical way of understanding and this I-it relationship is it is even less adequate. And of course, when it comes to our relationship with the Creator of the heavens and the earth, then it is even more obvious, because we can describe nature. You can even describe people. There is nothing innate that says that it is not possible to describe nature, or that it is not possible to describe human beings. But there is indeed something that says that it is not possible to describe God. God defies really all description. So when we try to relate to God as it, or he, or she, or anything other than you, it is even less adequate. It will keep us even further away from the truth. And to me, this is a very, very large part of what spirituality is about. It is about the relationship. It is about relating to that which is around you and within you and outside, or however, beyond, however you want to describe it. It is relating to that with an I-you relationship. That God, Allah, is you, not he, not she, not it. And it is only when we come to that relationship that we really are able to worship Allah, that we really are able to praise Allah, that we really are able to glorify Allah, that we really are able to have a meaningful, let us call it, interaction with Allah. Anything else really will just be lip service. There's nothing wrong with saying Allah is great and describing all the fantastic, beautiful attributes of Allah. But we will not be moved. It will not reach to the depth of our soul until we start relating with God as you. And this, as far as I understand, as I said, is what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam describes when, on the question of Gabriel, peace be upon him, when he is asked, what is ihsan? Ihsan is an Arabic word which means to do good, or to make things beautiful, really. Hasan means beautiful, and also means good, handsome, sound. But let's stick with beautiful. And ihsan is a form of the Arabic which means to make something into that which these letters mean. So hasana, hasanun means beautiful. So ihsan means to make something beautiful. So ihsan means then, in this context, that to make our actions beautiful, to make our lives beautiful. I read a book when I was still a child, really, or very, very young. Must have been my early teens, or maybe in my teens anyway. It is not really a recommended reading. It was the most depressing book I ever read. It's called Of Human Bondage by William Somerset Maugham. And someone else reading it at some other time might not find it depressing at all, but I, at that particular time in my life, found it really depressing. There's one thing there which is very fantastic, and it is a description of the meaning of life. They are sitting in a cafe somewhere in Paris. A lot of this book is in cafes in Paris, and this is the time of the new art movements, Impressionism, etc. And he's sitting talking to some philosopher or other, both destitute, of course, no money and a lot of ideas and thoughts. Like things, I think to a large extent, were in that time, in that particular place. And he's asking somebody, what is the meaning of life? And this person takes him, or at least he shows him, I think he takes him to a museum or somewhere where he shows him a Persian carpet. And he says, look at this carpet. Can you see the pattern? And he looks at this fantastic, intricate, beautiful pattern on this Persian carpet. It must have taken thousands and thousands of hours to knit by hand to make this carpet. He said, this is the meaning of life. To make the pattern of your life as beautiful as possible. This is a description of the meaning of life which does not include a belief in God. I think it is from a non-belief perspective. Because this, at least from the understanding of the context of who these people were, I think they were more existentialist maybe in their ideas than anything else. But still, I think it holds very, very, very true. Don't forget, of course, the important aspect. We are created by God. There is a purpose to our life that is greater just than what we can see here on earth. But nevertheless, a great part of that greater purpose is still this, to make this carpet as beautiful as possible. And that is part of the meaning of the word ihsan. That when you worship God, and as a Muslim, you worship God whatever you do. I am worshipping God now, sitting here talking to you. When you were brushing your teeth this morning, you were worshipping God. When you were sleeping last night, you were worshipping God. Everything you do is part of your worship. Islam does not make a difference between the worldly life and the spiritual life and the religious life. It is all one. To worship God as if you saw Him in front of you. أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ. That you will live your life as if you see God in front of you. Because when you see God in front of you, you realize that you are talking to a you. It is not an it. It is not a he. It is not a she. It is not a third person. It is the second person. So, why worshiping God? You do not think that now I am praying to Him. No, I am praying to you. I am not standing in front of Him. I'm standing in front of you. I am not talking to Him. I'm talking to you. And that is all the difference. And if you cannot have that level, when you cannot have this, because it's not possible to keep this all the time. I do not think that any of us are able to have this alive. Maybe there were certain chosen people of God that could. The prophets, I presume. If there were any others, then certainly very, very few. There is the story of Hanzala. Hanzala radiallahu anhu, may God be pleased with him, one of the companions of the Prophet, who having been in the majlis, sitting listening to the Prophet describing about especially the world of the hereafter, he finds himself, he is there. It's all real. He is beyond space and time. He is absorbed by maybe it's a bit of a derogatory term, but I will use it here anyway. He's absorbed by the magic of the words of the Prophet, of this magic atmosphere. And the Prophet, having seen these things with his own eyes, or that's the best way I can describe it anyway, having a first-hand knowledge of these things as if he had seen them by his own eyes, he is describing them to the people around him. And it feels so real. And then when he comes home and he is with his family, with his children, it all fades away. And it is not as vivid and clear and immediate as it was. And he thinks, what's happened to me? I must be a hypocrite. When I'm there, I believe, and when I'm here, I don't believe. Not in the same way. It's not the reality it was then, it is not that reality now. The you has become an it. I must be a munafiq, a hypocrite. So he goes out in the street and says, Hanzala has become a hypocrite. Hanzala has become a hypocrite. He meets one of the senior among the companions of the Prophet. And he says to him, I become a hypocrite. He said, think about what you're saying. What are you saying? You're out of your mind? What do you mean? He said, when we sit with the Prophet and we hear him describing the realities of the world of the hereafter, it is as if it was there in front of us. But when I come home, it is not. He said, well, that's how it is to me too. So they both go to the Prophet. And this person, Hanzala, says that Hanzala has become a hypocrite. So the Prophet says, no, it is not like that. He said, it is only a natural thing that if you were able to keep that level of presence, if you wish to call it that maybe, always that you have when you sit and listen to me and in these particular occasions, the angels will come and shake your hands in the street. You will be such a great saint that the angels will come and shake your hands in the street if you were on that level all the time. They said, oh Hanzala, it's only at sometimes, it's only special moments. You cannot keep this up all the time. It is not possible. And still he is talking to one of his companions, one of those who learned Islam from the Prophet of God. We can never even begin to imagine the level of their ihsan, this presence that they had in their worship, in their life transaction. So when we cannot keep this level that we are there in front of God, and we are not talking to him, we are talking to you, then the second level is that we should realize that whether we relate to God as a it or a you, whether we relate directly to God or we just sort of think of God in the third person, God is always relating to us as a you. فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. Even when you don't see God, he sees you. The relationship that Allah has, the relationship that God has with all of his creation, it is always this constant I-you relationship. God is always there for us. God's face is always turned toward us. Any time, any second of day and night, when we are ready, when we are prepared to turn toward him, he will be there. فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Wherever you will turn, you will find the face of God. This to me is the meaning of spirituality. I ask Allah to give us all this quality of ihsan, I ask Allah to make us all able to live with Him, to relate with Him, to worship Him as you. Ya Allah. O Allah, O our Master, our Creator. O Allah, give us the quality of ihsan. Ya Allah, let us make all of our actions, all of the things we say and our thoughts beautiful in your eyes. O our God, keep us always in your protection, in your nearness, and engulf us and overshower us with your mercy and your light. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.